If you ask some of the world's greatest investors, I'm talking about people like Warren Buffett, how a regular person should invest their money, you'd probably be surprised. They all tend to give the same incredibly simple answer. It's a strategy they recommend over and over and over again. And there you have it, straight from the man himself. I mean, when one of the most successful investors in the history of the world gives you advice that's this clear, you should probably listen up, right? It's such a powerful endorsement, it really makes you stop and think, what's so special about this thing? So that's the big question we're going to tackle in this explainer. What is this thing that these financial giants just swear by? We're going to break down what an index fund is, exactly how it works, and why it might just be the simplest, most powerful way for most of us to invest. Okay, let's get into it. All right, first things first. To really get what an index fund is, we got to break down the name itself. It's got two parts, right? Index and fund. So let's start with that first word, index. A market index, it's really just a list. Think of it like a shopping list or a basket of stocks that's supposed to represent a whole section of the stock market. You've definitely heard of the most famous one, the S&P 500. That's basically a list that tracks the 500 biggest, most important companies in the US. And this isn't some abstract, boring list either. We are talking about absolute giants, household names that are a huge part of our everyday lives. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, they're all in there. So when you hear on the news that the S&P 500 went up, it just means that, on average, these huge companies had a good day. Okay, so that's the index part. What about the fund part? Well, a fund is just a big pool of money that buys stuff. So an index fund is an investment that's designed to do one simple thing: buy all the stocks on a specific index, like the S&P 500. And here's the key part. The whole goal isn't to be clever and pick the winners. The goal is just to match the performance of the index. You're not trying to beat the market, you're trying to be the market. Now, to make this idea really, really stick, let's use a little analogy. I think this makes the whole thing click into place perfectly. Imagine you're in a massive grocery store. You could spend all day trying to find the single best apple in the whole store. Trying to predict which one will be the absolute tastiest. That's kind of like picking a single stock. It's a huge gamble. Or you could just buy a pre-made fruit basket that is a little piece of every single fruit in the produce section. Sure, some might be amazing, some might be a little mealy, but overall, your basket's performance is going to represent the entire produce section. That's the index fund. It's diversified, it's simple, and it represents the whole thing. Let's make it even simpler. How would you explain this to a kid? Well, imagine your child is in a class with 30 students, and every single one of them starts their own little business. A lemonade stand, selling cookies, whatever. Trying to guess which one kid is going to have the most successful business is pretty much impossible, right? But what if you could invest just $1 in every single kid's business? Now, you don't care who the superstar is. As long as the class as a whole does well, you do well. That's the magic of an index fund. You're betting on the whole team to succeed. Now, this whole idea of just owning the market, it seems so obvious and logical to us today. But believe me, it was once a completely radical, almost laughable concept. So let's take a quick look at the history of how this idea went from being a total joke to the financial giant it is today. So back in the day, before the 1970s, investing was all about one thing: trying to find that diamond in the rough, that one magical stock that would make you rich and beat everybody else. But then this guy, John C. Bogle, he had this totally revolutionary idea. And in 1976, he launched the first ever index fund for the public. Fast forward to today, and literally trillions of dollars are invested in index funds all around the world. But, oh man, it was not an overnight success, not even close. In fact, Wall Street pretty much laughed him out of the room. They called his invention Bogle's Folly and said it was a guaranteed way to be mediocre, to be average. They thought the idea was practically un-American. Turns out, they could not have been more wrong. So why did Bogle's Folly end up being such a massive, game-changing success? Well, it really comes down to three simple things. 1, diversification. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket, your risk is spread out. 2, they are incredibly cheap. Think about it. Since the fund is just following a list, it doesn't need to pay a team of expensive analysts to pick stocks. That means the fees are tiny, and I mean tiny. We're talking fractions of a percent, while other funds might charge 1% or more. Over a few decades, that difference alone can save you tens of thousands of dollars. And 3, it's just simple. You invest your money, and then you let the market do its thing over the long haul.
All right, so let's tie this all together. What does this all mean in the real world? What's the big takeaway from all this?
Let's look at the power of this over time. Let's say you took $10,000 and put it into an S&P 500 index fund and just left it alone. Based on historical averages, 20 years later, that 10 grand could grow to be worth around $67,000. And that growth didn't come from some brilliant stock pick. It came from patiently owning a tiny piece of the entire economy and just letting it grow. And this is a really crucial point. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Index funds are all about playing the long game. They're built on this fundamental belief that, over time, human beings are going to keep innovating and businesses are going to keep growing. An index fund is just your ticket to participate in that growth. And that right there is the entire philosophy wrapped up in one sentence. For decades, the smartest people in the world have tried, and almost all of them have failed, to consistently outsmart the market. The index fund just flips that whole idea on its head. It says, why try to find the needle in the haystack when you can just buy the whole haystack? It's a simple, humble idea that ended up being one of the most powerful tools for building wealth ever created. The real question isn't whether you can pick the winning horse. It's why would you bother when you can just own the whole race?